I just took the frost blankets off of all of these tomatoes, and they look great. They look like they survived just right. It was originally forecast that we were going to get down to about 36 degrees. It ended up being, the lowest I saw was 30, which would have killed these plants had I not covered them. I say that, but, so 30 degrees at my house. And if you'll remember, my house is about 10 to 15 miles west of here, east of here. So, what's interesting to me is it must not have gotten as cold out here. And the reason I say that is because, so this was a covered plant. This was a not covered plant. And I don't know if you can tell, but I don't really see a difference. So, that makes me think we didn't actually get that cold out here. Or, out here in the sun like it is, this stayed warm enough that we didn't have any trouble. If you look at the other things, so corn's fine. It didn't have an issue. Corn does fine so long as you don't get below 28 degrees. So we weren't anywhere close to that. So that's nothing to worry about. We do have, let's see if I can show you. To me, this corn is kind of pale. My dad said that it's fine. So I guess we'll see. Potatoes, you'll see right here. That one got bit. See how it's black and just going away. Now I don't know why that one specifically had an issue. That's the only one that I see. So that might be something else. Oh, maybe down here. Let's look a little closer. All of these look fine. Everybody, yeah, so I don't know what's going on with that one. I should pull that one up and get it out the way in case it's got some kind of disease I don't want the others to have. The strawberries, I think their blooms being down in the leaves like they are were protected. They look great. No sign of frost damage, and if you'll look, that is the beginnings of a baby strawberry. So hopefully we'll get a couple. There's about a dozen plants blooming. But it looks like they did okay. I'll show you if I go over here a little bit further. Of course, the onions don't mind. They like the cooler weather, and they're all looking really good. Lots of weeds in my other seedlings here. I wanted to show you, it's only been, let's see, it's been 3 days since I showed you these radishes last. Look at them. See the bulbs we've gotten now? If you want to try to grow something, give radishes a try. They're super fast and super satisfying. I wanted to walk over here and show you the grapes because they did not fare so well. So let's go over here and see if I can show you. I think the raspberries are probably okay. I also think the blueberries are probably okay. If you'll see, the raspberries look fine to me anyways. But if you'll look, the grapes, frost got them. My dad said the same thing about his at his house. So definitely was a bad time for them. But if you look close, remember me saying I thought this fig was dead? Well, this right here are the new fig leaves coming out. So, not dead. We'll go over and I'll show you the blueberries real quick. I know in the northern part of the state, up in the mountains and in the valleys up there, they've had about 100% crop loss on their apples, about a 70% loss on their peaches. I think I saw 50 on cherries, and they're thinking pretty big hit to the blueberries the last couple nights. So I expect local fruit's going to be hard to come by, and what you can get's probably going to be quite expensive. I can't tell if there's been any damage on these blueberries. They are more blue, but they may have just been going to get more blue at this stage. So I don't know. They are up close. That does look like some frost damage on these right here. You'll see those. That looks like could be some frost damage. So if you'll see the ones way down in there are still green. So we'll have to wait and see. They might have taken a big hit, or they might not have. These down here look the same way. Got real dark blue. If you'll remember, they were green in the video last time, and if you'll see, the ones down in here are still green, which makes me think all these ones on the outside have been bitten by the frost. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I did a little research on this cherry tree. You know, it's turning yellow, not looking too great. Everything I read said that it's more than likely a transplant shock. So it came out here in the sun, got hot, got dry, then it got super watered, and then my dad super watered it again. It's now been dug up twice by a critter, and hopefully I didn't step in the dog poop that was over here. Yeah, so we got some lovely poop here from somebody, and I don't think they dug the hole. I think something else dug the hole, and they may have been coming after whatever dug the hole. But I did cover it back up. I'm gonna give it some water here in a second, and see if we can't revive it. We'll see what happens. So the cold weather we just had is actually something that's not super uncommon in this area. That's why you'll hear some people say they don't plant until after May 1st. Some people say they won't plant any tender annuals until after Mother's Day. And that's because of something called blackberry winter. And that's what we've just had the last couple days. It occurs when the blackberries are blooming. So this is a wild blackberry, and it is just really starting to bloom. And so that's why it's called a blackberry winter, is a cold snap that happens when the blackberries are blooming. I'm out here working in the tomatoes, and what I'm doing is I'm taking my hoe, this lovely contraption, which with its fancy hardware here, it's good old-fashioned duct tape, and you'll see these teeny tiny little seedlings of things that I didn't plant. So I'm taking my hoe and running down the whole row and just basically skimming that top off all the way down. And then I'm coming back with my marigold seeds, which let me grab those so I can show you. I'm coming back with my marigold seeds, which I don't know if you know what they look like, so I'll show them to you real quick. These are my marigold seeds. See them down in there? They kind of, hold on. Let me do that in a better way. So they're kind of funny looking things. Kind of like, I guess kind of like a little broom is what they look like. And I'm just kind of sprinkling them along the ground here around these tomato plants. My idea is, if you were here last year, you'll remember I had that beautiful marigold hedge that actually was that row over there, I believe. And what I want to try to do this year is get that hedge to grow in both of these tomato rows. So have the tomatoes grow up through the hedge instead of the hedge being its own row. and see if that kind of takes care of the weed pressure and also gives them some shade and some mulch. So hopefully they'll do better. I'm gonna give it a try at least, and we'll see what happens. But gotta get all these little weeds up, and they're easiest to get up when they're tiny like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish chopping them up, get all these marigold seeds planted, get them covered back up, and then on to the next project. Back out here at the garden today, and you probably can see there's quite a few more lines of irrigation going on here now. I'll walk over this way and show you. So I've got 2 new lines going in right here. I planted 2 double rows, so 2 rows per row of silver queen corn. Now this is what we usually grow here, and it does really well. I mean, if anything's going to grow, if it's going to be a year for corn, silver queen's going to grow and it's going to produce. Now, if you'll remember, last year I had a little bit of trouble with corn, and that was down to irrigation. So when it gets closer to time that this corn's going to be ready for me to pick, I'm going to be more careful with my irrigation. And I'll explain that as we get closer to that season. So over here, I gotta stay away from this electric fence. It's got a lot of spiders on it that have built webs trying to catch things. So this was our silver king, or is our silver king. You can see it came up okay. That right side, that row on the right did better than this row on the left. And then way down there's a whole bunch of grass. But it came up fairly well, considering you want your corn to be about 6 inches to a foot apart anyways. So the fact that we have some space, and that's okay. That's going to be fine, I think. Obviously not bit by the frost. They did not care, which is lovely. And before you say, oh, well, is your corn being planted side by side, are you going to have cross-pollination issues? I don't believe so, and here's why. So Silver King, first of all, this has 2, if not 3 weeks of a head start on the Silver Queen. It'll be a week before that Silver Queen comes up. So I've got that little bit of time there between them, almost a month really. And then on top of that, Silver King is supposed to take 1 week less. So it should be coming in 1 week before Silver Queen if you planted them at exactly the same time. So I figure I have 5-6 weeks difference between the two. So it should be perfectly fine. Now, potatoes, they seem like they fared just fine with that freeze we had. Doesn't look like any damage to them. So that's excellent. I don't know if you can tell or not, but they are, probably every bit of a foot tall. And looking really good. Got a pretty good stand of those. And if you go over here to our next one, we did harvest a few radishes a couple days ago, earlier this week. I imagine there's some more in there. I don't think I'm going to plant any more radishes just yet because it's too hot. Even the tiny ones are coming out hot. So radishes, especially these cherry varieties, the red varieties, will get hot. So obviously in the same family as things like horseradish, and they can get spicy. So if it's hot out, that makes them spicier, and also the larger they get, the spicier they will get, at least for this variety. So we picked some tiny ones, and they did have a bit of spice to them. So I won't be, once these are done and they come out, unless we get some cooler weather, I won't be planting these out here anymore because we won't eat the hot ones. So it's no need growing them. They'll come back out when fall comes. Carrots, you can see they're starting to come up really well. Got to get in here one of these cool mornings and get all the grass out. But that's little baby carrot plants right there. They're doing fairly well, considering carrots are very hard to germinate. And you'll see I've got tons of grass I need to do something about. Little beets doing well here. They'll get going here soon. Supposed to get some rain tomorrow, so hopefully we'll actually get some. Onions still looking really good. I actually wish I had planted more than this, but they were an experiment. I've never grown them from the little slips before, so I think from what I can tell, the slips are going to be the way to go moving forward. But going back to talking about the rain, so here in Central Virginia, we have had 8/100ths of an inch of rain this entire month. And 8/100ths of an inch, you might as well say, is a drop. So the ground's really dusty, really dry. I mean, there's no water in that whatsoever. So everything's having a hard time growing, having a hard time getting things to germinate unless you're irrigating. And even the irrigating you can only do so much with. But hopefully we're calling for some rain tomorrow and a couple days next week. So hopefully out of one of those we'll get us a nice rain. It'd be lovely to have an all day, all night steady shower, but I don't see that happening. Down here you probably can see that bright bloom. Strawberries are really starting to take off. This one's got 2 blooms on it. There even was a couple baby strawberries floating around. That's a little baby strawberry there. So hopefully we'll get a couple strawberries out of that. Wildflowers just slowly doing their thing. They'll really start taking off soon, especially, like I said, if we can get some rain. Look at the volunteer sunflower. It's doing excellent. So is this one down here. Doing great. It'll be interesting to see what they end up being and doing. So let's go over and show you what the tomatoes are looking like. They did really well with this freeze. They didn't seem to mind. Now granted, I did cover them up, but the ones I didn't cover up did just as well. So I don't know that I needed to, but I'm glad I did. Now these ones here on this left, these first couple ones here, for some reason are looking kind of puny. So I have to keep an eye on them. I don't know if they don't have any fertilizer right there, or if they're too close to these trees behind us. The ones on this side look fine. I mean, look at the difference between that one right there, that one on the left, and this one here on the right. So on the left are the celebrity tomatoes. The ones on the right are the mountain fresh. And going down the aisle here, I'd say pretty much every one, the mountain fresh variety, is bigger. So it'll be interesting to see how these do. I'm going to try this year to keep real good records and real good notes and be able to compare how many pounds or how many bushels of tomatoes we get off of each side, and have a little bit more information. But they're looking great. Should be blooming here shortly. If you look at this one here, it's almost touching where I'll need to be feeding them between these lines, which is great. So I expect next week I'll have to put some of them, weave some of them through those lines there. If you come over this way, there's a empty row here. I'm about to put something in, but this one right here where you see the irrigation marks, that one now has Blue Lake green beans in it. The bush variety, same ones we did last year. And if you'll remember, last year we had an overabundance of green beans. My mom actually said she was done picking green beans and she was not going to pick anymore last year. So we left probably the last picking, we just pretty much left on the plants because we were all tired of picking at that point. So this year I only planted 1 row. It's still a double row, so 2 sets of plants all the way down, 2 sets of seeds. I seeded these 3 days ago. So I imagine next week, especially if we get some rain, by next Friday we'll see some little plants poking up here. But like I said, I only planted 1 row this year because we just had way too many last year, and if we get some to can, great. If we don't, I still have plenty in the pantry, so it'll just be nice to have some fresh ones. This row here to the right, the one between the green beans and the tomatoes, I think that's going to be butter beans. I'm going to try and get that in the ground here in just a second. But I'm using a different kind this year. So usually we're planting Henderson or Thurgreen butter beans. I know if you remember last year, I got maybe a quart of butter beans last year, and that was after planting them twice. They just wouldn't fill out in the pods. So did some reading and some asking around, and people are now recommending the Ford Hook butter beans, that variety. So I got some at the garden center, and the interesting thing about it is that when I went to the garden center to get seeds, they had the Henderson ones and the Thurgreens, and they, to my surprise, also had the Ford Hooks. And in the big buckets they had there, the Ford Hooks were almost gone. The other ones were still there, still had plenty of them, but the Ford Hooks were almost gone. So that to me says that everybody else in the area must know the same thing. And so I'm going to give it a try and see if that makes a difference. I have to rake this row flat here, and then I'm going to run this little seeder, fill it up with the seeds and run it across. I have a good video explaining how this little thing works. If you go back to last year, I'll try and link it so you can go to it if you have one of these, or if you're thinking about getting one of these. It works really well so long as you prepare your soil good first of all, because you don't, like this hill right here, you don't want to just run down it right now. If you do, you're going to have a lot of trouble, because all of these clods are just going to create problems for you. So all these clods of dirt, big rocks and things are just going to make you go off course, and you're going to have a hard time doing it. So what I do is I take my rake, and I'm going to rake this nice and flat and nice and smooth. Get as much of those rocks and clods out the way as I can. And then once you have a nice smooth surface, you can roll with that little seed planter. It probably takes, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds to plant all the way down and all the way back. It's amazing. It does really well. And if you rake this nice and smooth and clean, I've found that the seeder does a better job of covering the seeds. So the seeder has a little attachment on it. Let me see if I can show you. It's got a little wing on the back here that's meant to cover your seed back up as you're going along, so you don't have to come back and cover them up. And that works really, really well so long as you've prepared your soil properly. So long as you've gotten it nice and smooth, it'll do really well. If you haven't, then you'll have a little bit more trouble. Sorry, I saw a weed I wanted to get. But yeah, so if you prepare it nice, it'll cover them up, and you won't have to do anything else. You'll go down and back with your seeder, because butter beans, I'm going to double row them as well. But anyways, I'm going to stop talking and get to planting. Alright, so we're going to try and get these butter beans planted. You can see I've raked that row nice and flat. I'm going to show you here what these butter beans look like. So these are your Ford Hook butter beans. Bigger than what I'd usually be planting. And I'm hoping they're going to fit through this seed wheel. So it says baby lima beans, and I tried a few of them and they do seem like they go through it. So what I'm going to do is get this wheel on this planter. If it'll, sometimes you have to hold your mouth just right to get it to go on. Okay, got that on. And we're going to dump in our seeds. And we'll see how this goes. I'm thinking it's going to take me about 15 or 20 seconds to go down and come back. But we will see. You time me and we'll find out. Now, I always like to go back and look and make sure, stick you with me, and make sure that I got pretty decent coverage. I think back here towards the end, I was getting kind of light on seed. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think there's any seed in there. That's not good. I think that seed was a little too big for this planter. Yeah, that's not good. Back here a bit further. See where it stopped planting them. Uh-oh. There's one. There's another one. Alright, so somewhere around here, it stopped planting them. So, I need to come back and plant those from here on. So, where that big rock is, I'm going to come back with the rake and the hoe and plant that little section. I had a feeling that was going to be an issue. So I'm guessing these left in here are too big to fit. So I'm going to get those planted real quick and get some irrigation to that row. So one of the things I'm doing a little differently in this row is I took, let's see, I never can think of what it's called, but I took this fancy hoe, I assume it's a type of hoe, and I used it to go in between where the planter went. So you can see the planter went this way and that way, and that's the flap from the wheel behind it. And I took the hoe and made a trench down the center there. I don't know if you can see that. And that I'm going to put the irrigation in, because what happens when you use the planter, as you can see on this one, is you have a hill that ends up in the middle. And what happens with that is, and you can probably see it on that row, is that irrigation kind of dances on that hill. And so it'll fall off to the left, it'll fall off to the right, and you have to deal with it and get it back where it's supposed to be. Now, you can obviously go through there with a bunch of landscaping pins and pin it exactly where you want it and do all that. But I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm going to try this trench and see if that contains it a little bit better. So let's see what happens. I think that's going to work a lot better. If you can see, it's falling down in that channel I made. And I think that's going to work really well. If it does, I'll do it on these next ones going forward. But I think for today, that's as far as I'm going to get. Well, I guess for this week. See that pretty butterfly down there? That's one of those white and black striped ones. It's very hard to get a picture of them. They're very skittish, but really pretty. But anyways, I think that's probably as far as I'm getting for this week. It's pretty hot, quite sunny, but I did get a row of butter beans planted, so that's great. So this week, let's see, we uncovered the tomatoes, made sure they were okay, made sure their irrigation was straight, planted marigold seeds around the edges of them there, planted 2 rows of corn over there, technically 4 rows of corn because they're double rows, planted this double row of green beans, double row of butter beans. So not a bad week. Not bad at all. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll be able to run the tractor through the corn and do away with the grass that's really starting down on that end. I do have quite a bit left to plant, so I have 4 more empty rows here that I need to fill up, and I also have part of a row over on that end. If you remember where the end of the onions are, there's quite a bit of row left over there, but that gets kind of shady and dry, so I have to be strategic in what goes over there. Still have quite a few flowers that need to go in the ground, some sunflowers. So in the next week we'll be getting black-eyed peas in the ground, squash, cucumbers, zucchini, sunflowers, some more zinnias, maybe some peanuts. I'm still thinking on that one. But yeah, so now that we're pretty much, we're past our average frost date. The average frost date for this area in Zone B is April 15th, so we're past that now. But we can still have trouble into May, so we do have to be kind of mindful of that. But I'll be planting all the rest of this by seed. Oh, and I do have to get my peppers and get them in the ground. So a lot to do in this next week coming up, and then hopefully the whole garden will be planted and we'll get to start reaping some of the rewards. I'm hoping by the end of next week that we start seeing some blooms on these tomatoes, but we'll see. Doesn't hurt for them to get a bit bigger before they start doing that. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you learned something out of this week. If there's anything that you have questions about or suggestions, just let me know. I'd love to have some conversations. It's gorgeous out here today, but it's quite hot. It's probably about, I don't know, 86, 87 degrees, and sunny as can be. Had clouds for about 15 minutes and they were lovely, but now it's just hot. Very, very hot. I don't know if you can hear the birds in the background. They're having a great time. I'll be quiet here in a minute and let you listen for them. But thanks for coming along this week. Thanks for sticking with me. I think going forward I'm going to try to stick to mainly gardening videos, just because that's mainly what I'm doing this time of year. And also the lovely YouTube algorithm kind of wants me to stick to one topic, so it'll show me to you. So I think gardening's going to be the thing for the next couple weeks. I may throw in some other things here and there. But thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoy these videos. I hope you get something out of them. And I'll leave you with the sounds of the farm.